biggest change is yet to come. 2 months ago, we announced that we're getting rid of the auction house.
Loudest applause yet.
The overall game experience.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 12 of Aggathon's Rage Bar, the show where you ask me questions and I drink delicious beverages. So, BlizzCon just happened. Big changes coming to Azeroth and sort of Draenor. I guess reverse changes happening to Draenor? So yeah, a lot of things to cover. Not going to be able to cover it in one episode. And I'm going to be gone next week on vacation. So, here's what I'm going to do for you guys. I'm going to release 2 episodes this week and none next week. So the first episode will be released on Tuesday, which I'm recording this Monday, but you'll see this Tuesday. So it's coming out today. And then the next episode I will probably be releasing on Friday, and that will be part 2. And I think I'm going to get Remedies from BlizzMaster to be on the show too, to talk about some of the changes that are going on, to kind of help me out with it, because there's a lot to shift through. So before I get too much further with all of that, so 2 episodes this week, none next week, but, send me in your questions, then I'll have a bunch of questions, the week after, and hopefully I can answer some of them then. But anyways, before we get any further, I know what you're all waiting for. That's why most of you probably even watch this, is to, what are you going to drink this weekend? Well, since I work at a pretty awesome place and they gave us free beer, I decided to share the free beer they gave us. This is Boulevard Brewery's Nutcracker Ale. Now, I think I've talked about Boulevard before, but I don't think I've ever actually done a Boulevard beer yet, that I recall. So, I kind of wanted Boulevard Wheat to be first, but this is their seasonal, and so I thought I'd try it. Now, I know a lot of you are looking at this going, Nutcracker Ale? What kind of frou-frou Christmas bulb is this? It's effing delicious is what this is. And frankly, I was surprised. I decided, what the heck, it's Boulevard, I usually like their stuff. I'll try it out. And it's very amazing. This is probably the best winter ale that I have had yet. It is still very full flavored, still freshly hopped, but it's not too strong on the hoppiness. I think for me, a lot of winter brews are sometimes a little strong on the hops, but this isn't, and this is fantastic. So as soon as I find my bottle opener, which is right here, I will pour this and sample some more. This stuff is absolutely decadent, and I'm pleasantly surprised by how good this is. So one of these days I'll feature Boulevard Wheat, but today this is the Boulevard Nutcracker Ale. Cheers, y'all. To BlizzCon. Too bad I couldn't be there. I really wanted to go. That's awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, my grandmother was, she's very disrespectful. She decided to be born 90 years ago as of BlizzCon, and I can't believe she'd be so inconsiderate. Anyways, so I couldn't go to BlizzCon, but I really want to go. I've been watching as much of the virtual ticket as I could. I was obviously busy with festivities this weekend, so I'm still watching and still catching up, but I've been trying to keep up with all the news. I've watched a lot of it so far, just not all of it. So maybe they said something that I either already didn't cover or already covered, but I'll get to it. Hopefully that's another reason why there's 2 parts. First off, I would like to say, called it! While everyone pretty much knew it was going to be Warlords of Draenor, and everyone hinted, oh, it's going to be somehow related to Outlands and Draenor, because it's Draenor, I just have to say that Lore Master 7 Moons and I just nailed it. Especially him. His thought of Garrosh going back in time, and that's how all this gets started. Like, I knew it was we were gonna go back in time or something, but I didn't think it was gonna be Garrosh. He did. He called it. He nailed it right here on this show. First, um, but we were right about. I was right about a lot of other stuff too. Item level squish is happening. So happy, so happy. So that's gonna be great. But there's also a lot of other gear changes that are happening. The first is that the primary stat on your gear will change based on your spec. So there's no more needing 2 sets of gear, which when I was talking about this in an earlier episode of what you could do to help gearing up, for some reason it never occurred to me, why not just have the primary stat change? That would fix a lot of stuff. I mean, it may not be optimal to have like crit and mastery versus haste and something else. I would say like hitter expertise, but those are going away too. But at least it's usable for your other spec. But yeah, they're getting rid of hit and expertise as well, which I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. So with hit and expertise, I feel like it's become almost too trivial and no one really cares about it anymore. For most part, there's enough on your gear that you pretty much load up Reforged Light or you go to Ask Mr. Robot, and although I really prefer Reforged Light because it does all for you. But you just, click your spec, click calculate, click show, click reforge, you're done. All your gear is reforged as perfectly as it can get. I mean, when you can do that, it's just a ceremony of pressing some buttons, so what do hit and expertise really matter at that point? It no longer becomes, I think, an interesting mechanic. The only time hit was even really more interesting was when you have like hit and haste like inflection points in the theory crafting, and that's where having more haste, so more hits at attempt, like this was rogues back in TBC at one point, like there was a point where if they had enough haste, then they would have more attempts at hitting that would connect than gymming for hit would go for. So sort of inflection points like that are kind of fun from a math standpoint. But really, other than that, not that interesting. So they're getting rid of that, and subsequently, they're also getting rid of reforging, which I find really interesting. Quick tangent here. Yeah, I know my hair is ridiculous. I'm getting it cut tomorrow. I was going to get it cut today, but my place where I get my haircut is apparently closed on Mondays. Whatever. For the next episode, I will look a whole lot less like a hobo. So, anyway, so hit expertise are going away, and we're getting new tertiary stats. Some of the things I mentioned would be like run speed and cleave. I really don't know how I feel about these. I think there was some math at one point that I saw for Rogue Theory crafting back in Wrath of the Lich King, where they calculated the difference between using the Agi enchant and using the speed boost enchant. And if you had to move like a certain number of yards in a fight, then the uptime on the boss increased by having the run speed enchant versus the Agi enchant made the run speed enchant better. And it was something absurd, like 1 second, or even less than a second. So if there was like less than a second that you would be hitting the boss instead of not hitting the boss, which ended up being like 50 yards or something. So if you had to like move across the room once in a fight, the run speed enchant got better. So, and then cleave. What about on fights where you're like not supposed to cleave? Like, how do you manage that? Especially without reforging, you can't just like open up a reforge mount, reforge your gear, and now you don't have any cleave on it anymore. And what happens to all those reforged mounts? You guys spend a lot of money on that. What's Blizz? What are you doing, Blizz? What are you going to do for those people that bought reforged mounts? Alright, so enough on stats. I might delve a little bit more into that in the next one, but that's the general idea of the stat changes. Is your primary stat will change based on your spec, and hit expertise are going away, and your secondary stats are going to change. There's going to be tertiary stats such as cleave and run speed. So it should be very all interesting how that pans out. One of the next really big changes is level 100. I mean, I think everyone pretty much saw that coming. New talent at 100. I think pretty much everyone saw that coming. I mean, I mentioned it, but I'm not exactly Nostradamus on that one. Although, I will say they did joke that they were giving it to you 5 levels early, like I said. But, whatever. Another big, huge change is garrisons, which I've never been a huge fan of player housing. I've been a bigger fan of guild housing. I kind of wish that garrisons had been more of like a guild housing thing than an individualized. But I think we sort of saw how that affects guilds when we had all of the really overpowered like guild perks, and then if you try to start a new guild and you didn't have those perks, it was just a huge pain in the ass. And so I feel like that's probably why they didn't do guild garrisons and guild housing, is just because, okay, so what if you're starting a new guild and you don't have the magical Tower of Rapunzel, so now your raid's inferior. Yeah, that's kind of crappy. So I think that's why they did it on a personal level, although again, I kind of liked guild housing over character housing, but we're going to talk more about that with Remedies probably, just because I'm not as familiar with that. I haven't done a whole lot of research into it, and it really depends on how they implement it, so we'll discuss that in more depth. But the big thing I want to talk about, the number one thing, the head honcho, the elephant in the room, mythic rating. 10s and 25s. Big changes. So, what is this mythical change? Well, there's a new rating structure. First off, Raid Finder is going to be largely the same. You're still going to queue to 25 people, but if people leave right before a pull, instead of waiting on that last healer, you can just pull. The raid is automatically going to scale down to how many people you have when you're in Raid Finder, down to 10 people. Flexible rating is going to be renamed normal rating, and that will be flexible from 10 to 25, although they talked about maybe bumping it up to 30, possibly even higher, but I really doubt it. Then normal mode is going to become the new heroic, and instead of 10 and 25 versions, it's going to be flexible also. So now normal mode is flexible, and it is also cross-realm still, which will have implications. And then the biggest change, the one that's caused the most drama, and I'm sure will cause the most drama once 6.0 hits, is that there's no longer heroic 10 and 25 rating. They're going away from that format, and instead they want cutting-edge formats to be one format instead of two. So, big news. No more 10-man hardcore raids, no more 25-man hardcore raids, but let's face it, most of you in 25-man guilds, you can probably think of 5 people you want to kick. 10-man guilds, can you think of a guild you want to merge with? You better. Because if you want to do hard mode raiding, you need 10 more people now. This is what's causing the most controversy. And what I'm going to say, and what I've been saying on TankSpot, is really going to piss off a lot of people. I like this change. Let me just let all this sink in here. Why do I like this change? Why am I okay with getting rid of the most popular hardcore raiding format? In terms of number of raiders doing 10s or 25s, most of them are doing 10s. Now, there's still, I think it's something like roughly 34% of guilds are 25-man guilds, and like a higher percentage of hardcore raiders are 25 than are 10s, but there's still a ton of 10-man hardcore guilds. Um, and I'm kind of okay with that going away. And it's really making a lot of people grumpy at me. Now, here's the thing. I've never had an allegiance between 10 and 25-man guilds. I've done both. In fact, largely in Kata and in MOP, and not as much in Wrath of the Lich King, but really in Kata and MOP, I've been primarily a 10-man raider. I haven't done a whole lot of 25-mans. I've done some 25-mans. I tried to build a 25-man guild on a medium pop server that didn't have a whole lot of spare talent around. That didn't go too well for me. Um, it's and a whole lot of issues come up with this. Do servers have the critical density to support 20-man raids? Um, that's been a huge problem. Um, Overall, I agree with what they say about the reasons for why. And I may bring this up in a later episode again. I still haven't seen the Q&A forum. Apparently they answered this a lot and got kind of tired of answering this question. Um, from what I've heard, I haven't seen the QA forum yet. But the reasons I've heard so far and the reasons I agreed with are a lot of the same reasons why a lot of my 10-man guilds haven't really panned out and have sort of fluttered. Um, first, well, the first issue I'm going to talk about is gearing. So, gearing, when you don't have a guaranteed every class in the raid, gets really difficult, and it gets hard to balance that between 10s and 25s. 25s has always had the loot advantage. They will always have the loot advantage unless they drop significantly less loot. But it's just because it's not the probability of loot for you dropping. That's the same. It's the probability of loot dropping for your raid that changes. And having these longer tiers with more bosses so that you have, more diverse loot tables helps, but it doesn't completely solve the problem, and 10-mans can still get screwed, especially with tier tokens. The tier token issue is an issue that my current 10-man, or my actually just now previous 10-man guild, the GM quit just before BlizzCon, but my previous 10-man guild had an issue, and that was it only had one person on the Vank token. We had a mage. We didn't have a Death Knight, we didn't have a Druid, we didn't have a Rogue. And we had 2 Paladins, a Priest, and a Warlock on the Conch token, and we had a Hunter, 2 Shamans, a Warrior, and a Monk on the Protector token. 5 people on my token. 1 person on the Vank token. That's a huge class comp issue, and we were vendoring Conch gear, Vank gear, because there just wasn't anyone in our 10-man raid that had it. And really, 10-man hardcore guilds really get locked into specific comps, and it really helps if you have just this specific comp, and it can make or break your 10-man guild if you find the exact right class. And so then what happens to bring the player, not the class? It becomes an issue. And beyond that, what they've talked a lot about is game design, trying to balance and make sure that 10s versus 25s are equally difficult. And I think they probably do waste a lot of time in encounter design and trying to balance for both a 10-man version and a 25-man version. There's probably a lot of mechanics that they can't do because they'll be like, well, that would just be a lot harder for 10-mans and really easy for 25s, or vice versa. And I think, even in Siege of Orgrimmar, I'm starting to see that a lot. There's a lot of fights in hard mode 25 that it's not a real big DPS check, so you can just 3-tank it, and it's way easy. You can't do that as easily in 10-man, because then 30% of your raid is tanks instead of, what would that be, 11% if you have 3 out of 25? So, I mean, it's a huge difference in what you can and can't do when you have all of the extra utilities of more players. Um, I think they're right to take it down from 25 and make it only 20 if they're going to do this, because then they can sort of assume, look, you're going to have one of every class. It's easier for 10-man guilds to get into it. It's easier for guilds that are only doing like the new Flex Heroic. Like, it's easier for them to start recruiting up as they're progressing through this and go from 10 or 12 or 15 up to 20 and maybe a couple bench players or whatever, and then by the time you get to the mythic content, then you have 20 raiders. The other thing that's really good is all of the realm coalescing that they've been doing. They have been, you know, making sure that there's that critical density for raid structures in all the realms, especially the low pop realms. I think it's going to help a lot. But the other thing is, one of the reasons why it was so hard to get 25-man raids together was because 10s was a very viable format. Once I think that, once they remove 10s from the, well, they're not really technically removing 10s from the equation, but they're making it so that if you want to do hard mode content, you got to be a 20-man guild. And someone on TechSpot brought this up, Ion, and it's a real good point. Guilds aren't just going to say, oh, well, we're just not going to do hard mode content. We're just going to be a 10-man guild. That's really, I mean, maybe a couple guilds will do that, but really saying that you're a 10-man guild and that's it, and you're just going to do the flex content as 10-man is really kind of admitting defeat, and that you are not the best, not capable of being the best. Now, some people are going to be real casual about it. They're going to realize, hey, I'm never going to do mythic content. We don't want to do mythic content. That's not on our agenda. Fine. Those guilds are going to happen. More power to you. Wish you the best of luck. However, not as many of your cohorts are going to be as rational about that as you are. They're going to say, we need a roster of 20. In case we get through the heroic content, we want to do the mythic content, we need a roster of 20. So subsequently, 10-man raiding, I think, is really going to kind of vanish off the scope. No one's really going to care about it anymore. It's all going to be about 20-man guilds. I don't personally think that's a bad thing. For a lot of the reasons I stated, I think that allowing them to focus on one raid format really makes it so that they can make better boss encounters. They can assume that you're going to have one of every class, so you can do spell steal mechanics like on Illidari Council and High King Mulgar. You can, say, oh, people are going to have enough raid cooldowns to live through this mechanic. Loot issues become a lot less magnified. And if you're going to go to one format, you can't just kill 25s and say, okay, everything's 10-man now. Because while there are a lot of people that prefer a smaller group, more tactical, close-knit group of friends that want to do small-time content, it's not that they, hate people. I kind of rib on Ion on Tank Spot because he really doesn't hate people. He hates stupid people. And I kind of rib on him and say, well, you just hate people. That's why you don't want to do 25-man raids. But really, he would rather have a small group of, close connected friends that, it's sort of like a small tactical force almost, I guess, I'm really wording this poorly. But anyways, the point is they just prefer a smaller group of people. And that's great. There are also people, conversely, that prefer a larger group of people. They feel it's more communal. They feel like more is going on off raid, and they want to do other things other than just raid. Maybe they want arena. Maybe they're really into, challenge modes or whatever. They just prefer the feel of a 25-man guild to a 10-man guild. So I really feel like you can't go the other way if Blizzard is really locked in on one format. So I feel like 20-man is the compromise here, and that's going to piss off a lot of 10-man hardcore guilds. It just is. I'm sorry. Some of your guilds are going to break up. That's going to happen. Now, a lot of times that happens in an expansion anyway, but probably it's going to be more turbulent than others. And the guilds that stay together, maybe they'll have a better recruiting pool and more people will start merging into those guilds. I mean, fact of the matter is there's going to be fewer guilds. Smaller communities are going to break up, and if you want to keep raiding, you're going to have to get merged in a larger community, or you're going to have to, a lot of people may end up quitting the game over this. I think that's a real shame because I think that there's some really, really good stuff that's going to happen in Warlords of Draenor. I am really, really excited for this. I really do like the 20-man format. I really, really like the additional flexible raiding content because I think what they're getting back to, and they keep saying this over and over again, they're talking about raiding with your friends, raiding with a community. When you go to BlizzCon, you get to meet all of these communities and all of these people that get together and would have never ever met before. Instead, they share this common, like, nerdy bond of playing World of Warcraft. And you know what? Screw everyone else if they think that's a super nerdy thing. We're gonna have fun at BlizzCon. It's a community thing, and they need to bring the community back to the game, and flex rating has done that so well, I feel like. I've met so many other people because I've just been doing random flex rating than if I hadn't been otherwise. LFR, you just kind of queue and whatever, you're not going to see these people again. But flex rating, you have to actually go out and find people, and you want to find good people so you can raid with them again and do that content again with them so that it's an easier run. And I think it's great that normal mode basically is going to be flex now. And I agree that you can't really do flex in hard mode. One of the things they were saying is like, well, hard mode raiders are going to be really hardcore about this. They're going to say, okay, well, this fight we need 14 people, and this fight we need 17 people. And that was one of my arguments against, making flex a thing in the first place. When people started saying, oh, why don't you just have a format that will just scale up and down based on the number of people you have? And I'd be like, well, then people are going to be like, well, 15 is the best number, so we're going to do that. That's already happening a little bit. Like, a lot of people are like, we want 14 players. If we get 15, it's going to be too hard. And it's not. But people seem to think that. But overall, Flex, I think, has been really, really great for the community. But wait, what about server communities? Well, I have here a question from Twitter, and it says, are you concerned about the effect on server communities? Why bulk them up with coalesced realms and then make normal and heroic raiding cross-realm? From Silithia. So this was a question I had actually posed to Ghostcrawler on Twitter, and this person had responded to it. And I don't think this can really be summed up in 160 characters, so I told the person I'd answer it on the show. And Ghostcaller had responded, yes, heroic and normal mode in Warlords of Draenor will be cross-realm. So how will this affect server communities? Well, first, I think they've already done a pretty good job of killing as many server communities as possible. Secondly, I think that people are getting, a lot of time at BlizzCon they said the word, raid with your friends or raid, with a community. They talked a lot about community, and people said, well, but I care about my guild. Why do I care about the larger community? And what they're really saying in context is they're using the word friends like interchangeably with guild. And I think the community as a whole goes beyond just individual server communities. And really, as people interact more and more with each other, I think you'll see that the server communities will grow out of this as well. And really, I think that flex rating is just overall better for everyone because it forces you to actually interact and be better at the game and find better people to raid with. And you germinate friendships out of all of that. That's why I loved the Burning Crusade. I still talk to some of the people I raided with in Burning Crusade. Some of them, the people I met in that area and in Wrath of the Lich King era, are still some of my best friends today. This isn't just, this game shouldn't be a queue lobby. That's not what MMOs are. I think an MMO needs to be a game where you build a world first and it's a game second. And I think that Warlords of Draenor and really Mists of Pandaria started leading into this. I felt more like Mists of Pandaria, especially with flex rating, has been a world and a community first and then a game second than any other expansion since the Burning Crusade. And so I'm really, really excited to go back to Outlands, to go to the original Draenor, and just see what happens. This is. I have not been this excited for expansion since I heard Illidan say, "You are not prepared." Like, I can't get over how excited I am, how I love all these changes. Anyways, I'm going to get off the 10 versus 25 versus 20 arguments for a little bit. Send me your comments. Let me know if I'm full of crap. Let me know if you have good reasons why there should still be two formats. I think for hardcore rating, I think they're going to make a better game if it's one format. And if they're going with one format, I think 20 is the compromise that is going to work the best. So there you have it. But let's move on now a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about PvP. What's that you say? I thought PvP was dead. Me too. But they're finally making the change that I've been screaming for since the beginning of Wrath of the Lich King. Oh my god, I am so excited. I'm probably actually going to PvP again in Warlords of Draenor because of how excited I am of this. Trial of the Gladiator, they're changing it to what Arena should have been from the beginning. I am so stoked. They are removing the gear equation from Arena. You can still do stuff and get conquest and honor. You can do battlegrounds or rated battlegrounds. You can get gear that way. You get PvP gear, and that'll be really helpful in other battlegrounds, which is going to be awesome. And in the new world PvP zone that they're going to have, which I think is going to be amazing. Well, I think it has the potential to be amazing. I'll get to that a little bit later. But Trial of the Gladiator, the Arena ladder, is now going to be all about skill. You get the same gear as everyone else has. It doesn't matter that some guy got to 2200 first, so he has the better sword. So if you're in an equal skill match, he's going to beat you every single time because he has better gear. Doesn't matter. You all have the same gear now. And that so excites me. And it's only during certain time periods that you can do Trial of the Gladiator. And that makes me excited also because that means the people that get on at 4 a.m. and point swap can't do it anymore. Another thing that just makes me really, really happy. I think they're finally going to change WoW PvP into what it should be. And I think they're trying to facilitate World PvP more, and especially with the zone that they're going to have. I'm a little dubious that it's going to be as awesome as they think it's going to be, but because of Coalesced Realms, because they're going to use the cross-realm server technology, they're going to merge servers that have high alliance populations and high horde populations such that you can actually have an epic battle on that PvP zone. I think it's going to be pretty great. And I think that it's going to spawn possibly some server rivalries between the servers that are matched together and fight on that island, just kind of like there were back when servers queued against each other back in vanilla. Was that vanilla? I think that was actually TBC when servers queued against each other before it was just a mismatch of everything. It's been a long time. This game's getting old. But yeah, the New World PvP zone is basically going to be this like constant PvP battle. There's going to be objectives, or you can capture towers, or you can build a siege engine, and all this other stuff. I'm a little bit dubious as to how well it's going to work out, but I'm going to remain optimistic for once on this. I thought PvP was dead, but honestly, I think they're doing the right things to help with PvP. And speaking of World of Warcraft being a ridiculously old game, and not in addition to it being ridiculously old, we're going to go back in time. We're finally also getting character model upgrades. And I was actually talking with my guild when we got the mount for Ahead of the Curve, Liberator of Orgrimmar. I was like, hey, this mount has a little different graphic styling than most of the other things. It kind of has this almost like black shaded outline to it that makes it almost pop out more. It's really cool. And if you look at the new models, they do the same thing. So I think that was sort of like a teaser, a tester for the new models that are coming out, and the previews that they've showed us are pretty awesome. And I like that they've said, look, we want to keep the feel and the format. We want your character to look the same, so that you don't have to make new art for your character. Not really. That's not what they said. But your character's still going to look and feel the same. It'll just be better. It'll be enhanced. It'll be better textures, better graphic quality, and I'm pretty excited for it. I think the models we've seen so far just look really good. So yeah, that's another one of the huge things that's happening with the new expansion. Anyways, send me your thoughts. I'll try to cover some of the rest of the stuff, like garrisons, in the part 2 of the episode. I'll try to jot down some notes. Send me in your questions. If you have any questions, let me know what you felt about BlizzCon. And I will see you guys Friday. I think I'm going on vacation for a little bit. You stay classy, Azeroth. And that's the way it was. And that's the way it was. Azeroth is, of course, German for whale's vagina.